Take one.
Hi, I'm Evert, and this is my SIP Talk. So I definitely think that the hospitality industry is an industry that's prone to toxic management and toxic work environments. It's definitely because of the odd hours. It's definitely because of the diverse group of people. I think growing up in South Africa, it's often an environment where you can experience toxic workspaces, but I definitely think that a lot of the time it comes down more to how you're feeling. Toxic management is something that I have experienced. It is something that depends on what you're used to, how thick your skin is, where you're surrounded by. So the thought often crosses my mind whether or not my management style is toxic or not. And I think that's very important. I think it's important to keep thinking, am I doing this right? So 100% I have thought about it. So one of the big things for me is always that when somebody is having a discussion with me in the work environment, when somebody brings me good news, when somebody brings me bad news, when somebody does something wrong, when somebody does something right, one of my specific tips is I always take a moment to just understand how I feel first, how I feel and action on that. So it's basically address, wait, process, and then take the conversation further. Definitely. So the new generation is a generation that I've lucky enough been sort of half part of. I grew up a little bit in the old school, a little bit in the new school. In the old school, it was very easy to swear at somebody. It was very easy to, even at school, to get a hiding. I found that it's impossible to get anywhere with the new generation if you're going to shout, if you're going to swear, if you're going to take drastic measures. It's more about conversations than drastic reactions. You have to be a little bit softer. You have to be a little bit more relaxed. You have to have a lot more conversations. Personally, I am generally quite soft. So luckily, it's never something that I've had to change. I think I've always put the conversation first. I've always put the person first. I've always put the situation, the business, and tried to find a way to make everything work the best. So the first thing to identifying toxic work environments is when you wake up in the morning and you realize that you have to go to work. Are you excited to go to work or are you not? If you're not excited to go to work, is it because of what you're doing or is it because of where you are? Is it because of who you have to deal with? If you wake up in the morning and you're not excited to go to work because of the people, you're most probably in a toxic work environment. So take time to understand yourself. Take time to understand your feelings. Take time to understand how your personality works within your work environment. That's how you find out whether or not you are in a toxic space. It's all about you. It's all about how you feel. Most days I feel excited. If I don't, it's probably because I'm tired. So in order to exit a toxic work environment or in order to better a toxic work environment, there's obviously degrees of drastic behavior that we can take. It's either you take a moment to figure out how much this matters to you, how much you are going to let somebody else's behavior affect your mood. If that person's behavior is affecting your mood in such a way that you personally can't control, then take a moment to speak to that person. Always start at the source. Always start with who is making you feel a certain way. If that doesn't work, try to go to the next management. If management is toxic, you have to decide if you want to stay or if you want to go. My best advice would be to just make sure that if you do leave, you do it right so that it never comes back to bite you. If I'm realizing that somebody within the team is going through a hard time, it's very important to take a moment to speak to that person. Again, help that person understand what emotion they're feeling, why they're feeling it, and help them be a part of the solution. Allow them to ask them, what would you do to make this better? How can this be better? What do you need in order to feel happier or more secure or more validated? And I'll then work with them in executing that plan. If that doesn't work, I often hold staff meetings, right? Team meetings. You don't need to call people out to raise an issue. You just need to say, generally, I have noticed you guys are doing this and it needs to stop. I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to communication. So the perfect work environment is an environment where everybody actually just tells the truth, where everybody says how they're feeling, where everybody can listen to how someone else is feeling. I think in 2023, we're in a world that's so fast. We're in a world where we think a lot about ourselves, which is important, but we've forgotten to be empathetic. We've forgotten to take time to understand that we're all human beings with our own set of issues, with our own lives to live, and that we're all entitled to happiness. So my perfect space would be one where we could care for each other, where we could tell the truth and we didn't feel like we had to lie because maybe lying is what somebody else wants me to do, or they don't want to hear what I have to say. So how are you? And actually tell me for real, how are you? And don't just say good, how are you? Because that's what we do. I think again, the perfect boss is somebody who takes time. We all know that to run a business is a very, very demanding job. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of the big decisions, and it's a lot of stress. But remembering to dedicate time weekly to your team, I think that's just the key. Peer pressure is all about you. Peer pressure is all about your discipline. It's all about your strength. It's all about your ability to decide what you want to do. And if your friends are pressuring you into doing something that you don't want to do, then you need better friends. Thank you very much for having me. Lekker.